It's a fantastic product to help to finish your aligner cases and to reduce the frequency and the duration of revisions and refinements. And also to correct those kind of pesky open bites. So I don't know how many times you've done an aligner and at the end or somewhere in between, this kind of posterior open bite starts, and the patient maybe wasn't even an open bite patient to begin with. And you're thinking like, whoa, where did this come from? And how did this happen? And sometimes, sometimes we have no idea, I'm a pretty good detective. I can kind of go back when I work with doctors and look at their treatment plans and look at the start photos and look at the patient. And sometimes I can figure out why that happened. So sometimes it's the clean check or the clear correct setup that maybe you had the anterior interference and the open bite kind of spun off of that. Sometimes it was an open bite tendency patient, that was already there. And maybe because there was some crowding, it was masked a little bit, but as you unraveled the crowding, the open bite presented a little bit more. Sometimes it's a habit patient with lateral tongue thrust. Lastly, a lot of times, and this is just my experience, and there's really very little published research on this that I've found, but I also see that it's actually, for the most part, greatly related to parafunctional habits, bruxism, and especially clenching. So I see a lot of correlation between strong masseter muscles and posterior open bites in aligner cases. And I think it's because, unlike with braces, with aligners, your back teeth are covered by plastic, right? And that presents an intrusion force. When these people at nighttime are pressing and pressing and pressing, especially, and grinding and clenching on that plastic, you're actually forcing those posterior teeth to intrude. And it's like a constant force. And even if you're putting attachments and rubber bands on the back teeth, that's no match to the force of your masseter. Masseters are extraordinarily strong. So there's a lot of ways that you can prevent that, but I think it's more like noticing those patients on the front end of your case, flagging them, and tweaking your treatment plan accordingly. And just from my experience, I don't know that a lot of these big aligner companies are really taking this into account. It's not something that's part of the diagnostic process. It's not something that, for as long as I know, that they really educate doctors about. And it's something for us as orthodontists, we are aware of that. We realize that's an additional force, and a lot of times we'll factor that into our treatment plan. But often as a general dentist or a pediatric dentist, you may have no idea, So we're just excited that there's a solution is the main thing. And I definitely can say the TP Orthodontics Positioner is something that has been a great tool in my toolbox. I've used it all different ways. And this is just one of the main ways I'm using it. I also love to use it. I have like 20 different ways I like to use it, but we're going to be focusing on 2 today. So of course, closing open bites in aligner patients, finishing them quicker, using less plastic, because the less revisions and refinements that we have, the less we are polluting the earth. And that's something that really bothers me. I don't think you realize how much waste is happening in the oceans, when we're constantly using resin and it's not being recycled to do more revisions, refinements, not only the resin to produce the molds in order to make the aligners, but also the additional plastic material that's being used after you trim the aligners. This is not, for the most part, recyclable. So we want to try to minimize our waste so that we can be good eco-citizens. I use it for finishing up braces patients, especially if you have one. Maybe they weren't wearing their elastics very well. They're still not all the teeth are in contact. A lot of people like to go straight into an S6 retainer because it's cheap and easy and they can make it in-house. But the problem is, if you do that, again, if we've got a bruxer or we've got a patient that wasn't fully closed, they might only have contact on 2 or 3 teeth. Well, that's not the best way to finish patients. And here's a little quick tip. When I was in residency, we used TP Orthodontics. A million years ago, we used TP Orthodontics in order to finish our board cases, the cases we were presenting. That was our secret sauce in order to get a perfect grade. So it's been around for quite some time, and Troy's going to tell us the history of this. And it's a little secret that orthodontists used, and now we're sharing the secret with the world. So you got to stay tuned and listen to all Troy has to say. I know I've been talking. You guys don't want to hear about me anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and hand this, without further ado, over to Troy, who's going to do a quick presentation.